This is brilliant. I'm here today with Karen Williams, who is the book mentor at Libertas. So over the last 10 years, she's worked with hundreds of coaches, experts, and leaders who have a story to tell or a message to share, taking them through the whole process of writing a book from idea to final manuscript and launch and beyond, as we will be talking about today, so that their book helps them to attract more clients, raise their credibility, and show up in a bigger way. Karen herself is a TEDx speaker and the best-selling author of 10 books. 10 books. Most recently, the second edition of Book Marketing Made Simple, which is the one that I'd particularly like to talk to you about today, Karen. But first of all, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Alison. Thank you for having me back again for the third time. I think it is.
Some sort of record, isn't it? Well, you've always got such interesting stuff to say, Karen, and there's always a new book. So, I mean, that is quite impressive. I do want to talk to you about your book writing process at some point. But first of all, I want to talk about book marketing because, I mean, that's what people are tuning in for, isn't it? First of all, why did you write the book?
Well, I originally wrote the book back in 2017. It became a bestseller. It was one of my most successful books. But things change, don't they? Over the last 6 years, or last year, it was on my list of things to do. It never happened. And when we came into this year, it's like, I really need to update the book. There's, the principles of marketing haven't really changed. You need to have a really clear message. You need to be able to get it out there. You've got to market it well, and you've got to use the right media. But actually, so much has changed in the book world, the book marketing world over the last 6 years. I just needed to update it. And that's really where it all came from. So I sat down in March, took myself away for a week to write the book, realised there was more to do than I thought it was going to be.
This sounds familiar.
I thought it was going to be a 20% update, and I think the content's changed by about 80%.
Oh, wow.
It's increased from about 53,000 words to about 64,000 words, so it's gone up by about 20% as well. So the book has changed hugely in that time.
And I do want to drill into the specific sorts of changes that you noticed and what you realised had to go in there. But I want to back up just for a second, because you and I both know that for many people, writing a book is exactly that. They think once they've written the book, the job is done. And it's kind of heartbreaking when you have to explain to them that, you have now successfully completed part one of this process. So why is it such a huge thing?
Well, actually, one of the biggest things I wanted to do with this book, the updated version, is to remind people, I've changed the subtitle, don't ask me to quote it up by up, it's not quite embedded in my mind yet, is to make sure people market their book from the moment they start to write it. Yeah. Because you probably see this, Alison, we see so many people who get to the end stage, they suddenly panic because they're publishing their book, when actually marketing needs to start at day one, even before they put pen to paper, even before they've got a plan.
Just when you've got an idea, just start socialising it and building up the community around it.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that, although I focus on it in Book Marketing Made Simple, the first edition, I wanted to make more of it, and I wanted to give more strategies, because it's all well and good saying to people, you need to be on social media, but then they can be a rabbit in the headlights, can't they? Because they can think, okay, I need to be on social media, but what on earth am I going to post?
Now what?
So I wanted to give people ideas of how they could use it, and just some prompts to help people to post more effectively if they're going to use social media and blogging and podcasts and video and webinars and all of the other things that people could do to get their book out there. And so that was the reason for the update, really, and for Book Marketing Made Simple.
Yeah. And that in itself is a really interesting point, isn't it? Because, I mean, you list so many brilliant, straightforward, really practical strategies in your book. This is... it's not just kind of do this. It's like, this is how you do this. And these are some really specific ways you can go about it. And that's marvelous. And there can be a bit of a sense of, oh, crumbs, I've got to do everything now. So how do people know which out of these things they should do and what's too much when you actually start losing the benefit of what you're doing?
That's a really interesting question. When I interviewed someone for my first book, he said, pick 3 strands of marketing and do them well. And it's a philosophy that I take through my whole business. And I think once you've got something working, you could layer something else on. So it doesn't have to be 3 things only. So I've been doing email marketing ever since I started out in business. So that's pretty seamless for me. So I can add. I'm setting up my own podcast at the moment. Yay. So you can add extra things extra dimensions to mix when you've got something working. But to pick the ones that work for you depend on 2 things, really. Where do your readers hang out? Your ideal readers, how are they going to find you? If they're not listening to podcasts, don't do a podcast. If they're not watching video, don't do videos. If they're not on Instagram, don't do Instagram. And it's also where you feel comfortable as well. If you don't feel comfortable in front of video, don't do video. So it's just that I suppose it's just that blend of where people can find you, but also what you do and what you enjoy doing.
It's almost a sort of mini ikigai, isn't it? It's where
Yeah,
people are, what you do
absolutely.
well, what you love doing, and what's actually going to cut through the noise. Yeah, it's a really good
Yeah,
way of putting it.
definitely.
And
Yeah.
I mean, you said you sort of sat down and thought, oh, it'll just be a 20% update, and here we are with 8% of the book substantially rewritten. I'm going to guess that people who set up their marketing strategy in 2017 probably haven't replaced 80% of it actually. So I guess what changed, and what do we need to be, maybe one or two things that people really need to look out for if they haven't refreshed their marketing for a while?
What's changed, I think, is people use so much social media so much more. I don't think it's necessarily changed, but I think it's become much more of a tool. I think what's changed with AI, and when we met up and when we had a conversation face to face fairly recently, we talked very briefly about artificial intelligence and the impact that that's had. Not necessarily on marketing so much, but a little bit. But I think from a marketing point of view, there's new tools out there, tools that we can use to actually help us to find the right keywords and categories to list our book on Amazon, through to tools that can help us to market, and also tools that can help us to promote the book. So I'm thinking about content tools like Medium, Substack, things like that I don't know if they were in existence 6 years ago, which I certainly didn't include them in the first edition, which I don't think they were. Obviously, things have evolved. I did e-sign articles, I think I mentioned in the first edition, when that's moved on quite a lot, or things have moved on a lot. So it's tools, it's techniques, and it's new ways of looking at things. And obviously, podcasts have increased so much more over the last 6 years, become much more popular than they were back in 2017.
Yeah, there's a huge amount, isn't there? And it's interesting, when we were speaking at, it was Karen Skidmore's Momentum event that I saw you
Yes.
at most recently, and we were talking about AI and that balance between using AI but not delegating your thinking to it.
Yes.
And I think you brought that out really well in the book, about you can use it as a tool. What was it Grace Marshall called it? An infinite intern.
It's a really great research tool. If I find that I'm writing something and it feels a bit clunky, I just use ChatGPT to help me, because I know what I want to say. I know how I want to say it, and I just put it in, and sometimes it comes up with something that's wonderful. Sometimes it comes up with a load of rubbish, but that's okay. But you have to then bring your own voice into
Yes.
it. So it's certainly something that I probably could have included more on AI, but obviously it's such an evolving, developing topic that, again, with marketing, you just can't capture everything. So another example, Alison, is Twitter. I mentioned Twitter a lot in the
I
book.
was thinking that when I was reading it. I was like, beaten by events again. Yes.
I know. And so it got to the stage last week when we're doing at the time of recording this, we're doing the final sort of typesetting proofs, and so I've added a sentence in now, because they might change. Elon might change his mind and go back to Twitter. Who knows? Yeah. We can't keep up with technology, and we just have to. I think with our books, we have to set them as current in one moment in time, and just appreciate that things can change and things can evolve. But it's been a great learning for me, and also some of my clients who have asked me about, how do you cope when new social media platforms come out. And how do you balance that? Because you have to stop somewhere with a book.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing is that you yourself, I mean, expert though you are in pretty much everything you're talking about here, you've actually done that really smart strategy, which I love, of bringing in other voices. So you've asked people who are particular experts in a particular field, like SEO optimization, for example, to contribute. Tell me a little bit about the thinking behind that, I guess also the logistics behind that.
Well, I did it for the first edition. So when I was revising this second edition, I looked at who had contributed before and what other voices. So I re-sought permission to use articles that had already been published. And I also wanted to reach out to other people who I knew had more wisdom to share. So that's really where I just reached out to people I know, people I work with, just to find out if they're willing to contribute. So it really was having a conversation. They're going to be part of the first series in my podcast as well. So I'm organising interviews with them, which enables them to go a little bit deeper into the topic they've shared. I know a lot about marketing. I don't know everything. I don't claim to be a website expert, an SEO expert. I know a little bit. I can get by. But I do believe in using and working with experts. Mm-hmm. So it made sense to bring in other people who know so much more than me, rather than... And also it enables us to all promote the book together. So it's that partnership in terms of getting the book out there. I've also included... I've got so many more case studies now and client examples. So again, it's just bringing those in. It's just added gold dust, I think, to... I know a lot, but there's other people who know so much as well.
And it's you bring out there the kind of multi-layered benefits of that, which I love. Mm-hmm. So the book itself is better because you're bringing in expertise. You build up your network of peers and people to go to, and people who will then shout about the book on your behalf. As you talk about the book as a network is so important. And then you've got that profile raising thing, is that, you know, here you are, ready-made community for your podcast when you launch it. So it's so powerful, really lovely. And for yourself with the writing, it's something you do. It's part of your job now. You are probably unconsciously competent at it, but I'm going to make you think about it for a moment. How do you do it, and what is it that you most love, or you find most frustrating or enjoyable about it?
Okay, how do I do it? I work best when I take myself away from my working environment. So go away for a week, have some time away. I work best. So I think with my last couple of books, I've taken myself away for a week in the UK, where I've either gone with a friend or gone by myself, to actually with the intention of writing, because I work so much better when I don't have distractions. And when I go away to write, I take my food, I make food in advance, everything is prepared. So I literally just have to sit down and write. Walk, write, swim, whatever I can do to move my body as well as writing. So you can't sit all the time.
No.
So I enjoy writing. I have to have a plan. That's what I tell my clients to do. That's probably what you tell your clients to do as well, Alison. Have to have a plan. You have to be really clear on what you're writing, who it's for, and what's in each chapter. So there's a lot of that goes on. I suppose what frustrates me is when you do set aside time to write and things just don't pop into your mind. And that's where something like ChatGPT can help, because it can help you get over that writer's block. And I think that's one of the things I found this year, is that if you do sit down with a blank page, or actually you shouldn't sit down with a blank page, because you should know what you're planning to write next, really. And then obviously that helps. But if you do feel stuck or the words aren't flowing, there are tools like that can assist the writer. I suppose that's the thing that frustrates me, is when you know that you want to write something. But I've also got strategies. I had to think of something through this morning, so I went out for a walk, because I knew that in my mind, the best way I can actually, I can sit with a piece of paper, but the best way for me to do it, and of course, you can do the 6-minute writing sprints as well. Of course, we know that, Alison.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful, isn't it? And it's interesting. We're talking about all these different kinds of intelligence. There's your own instinctual intelligence, which and almost your physical intelligence. So when you're walking, the ideas come. There's this sort of sitting and sprinting, exploratory writing stuff. There's also other people's intelligence that you can draw on, but also use to kind of amplify your own. When you're having conversations with people, and suddenly ideas that are co-created that you'd never come up with on your own. And then there's the artificial intelligence, where you can turn to ChatGPT. What are people asking about this topic, and you generate a list of things that just get you started. I think knowing that you have all those at your disposal, and I guess understanding which is the right one to reach for right now.
Yeah, because you've just said, having conversations. So I do like going away I often go away with my friend Cheryl, and we're both normally writing, but we still connect. Yeah. We connect over a walk, and we talk things through. And if one of us is stuck, we help each other out, and that's joyous as well.
It is
just to be able to have that conversation.
Yes, and I hadn't really thought about it. Beck Evans is my go-to sort of writing buddy, and there's something. I live for the coffee breaks, I'll be honest. But there's also something really powerful about just looking across Gladstone's library and seeing Beck working that kind of brings me back to focus on the page. There's something about doing it in community, or, in partnership with someone that really helps you focus. And in terms of the tools that you use, let's get really down and dirty. Do you just open a blank Word document and go, or, how does it go?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. I know some people use Scrivener. I don't. When I did purchase Scrivener, and I looked at it and went, it's another thing to learn. And I just like a Word document.
I was a bit like that.
I'm old school. Word document, pad, pen, Post-it notes, loads of paper, plan it all out, dump it into a Word document, create a structure. And then also multiple Word documents when you're moving things around, when you realise something doesn't quite fit where it needs to fit, so you move it somewhere else so you don't lose it, having various versions of Word documents. But I like it all in one place, and I can see the progress. I can see the word count going up, down, changing all the time, and I know where I am with it with a Word document. So I'm old school, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And actually, it sounds trivial. You sort of said it in passing, but it's huge, isn't it? It's actually knowing where you're at, because I've had so many people. I remember talking to somebody the other day, and he said, "Oh, I'm not quite sure how long it is." Added up all the chapters that he'd written separately. Went, "Oh, actually, it's 200,000 words." Yeah, that's too long. That's a multi-volume set. Yeah. But if you have it in a single Word document and you're using word styles so that you can navigate it nice and easily in
Oh,
outline view.
absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Word styles are so important.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've got a template I create for my clients, which has got all the word styles, because not everyone's technologically minded as well. I have it all set out. Sometimes it blows people's minds and I do have to do a video to tell them how to use it. But I've had clients who have had multiple documents, piles of paperwork on their desk where they've got multiple. No, I can't work like that. I'm a very organised person. I like to be organised, shall I say? So I
I
like
like
to
to
have one
think I'm an
document.
organised.
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. I get you've probably given it already in there, but I'm going to ask for it anyway. I always ask my guests for their one best tip. So if somebody's just about to set off on this journey, what's the one thing that they need to be aware of or they need to try before they go any further?
I would say get really clear on your idea before you write anything. Get really clear on the idea. What is it? What's the big idea behind your book? And ask people before you get started. So that's really the most important thing. If you don't have that idea and you don't know what problem you're solving, what new information you're providing, or what angle you're taking with it, you're going to start writing, and then you could then restart writing and restart writing. So that helps, and obviously then have a plan, but have that really strong idea. Test it out before you start writing about it. So that's my biggest tip.
And it's an absolutely brilliant tip, and it's one of those things that you say, and it makes complete sense. But you this is what you do in a sense. So if somebody's going, well, how do I get clear on my idea? Just give them a little bit more, some ideas about how you help people get clear on their idea.
Really talking it through. I think for me, working with a lot of business experts is what do they do already? So if they are a stress management coach and they're writing a book about parenting, there's a mismatch there, unless they're moving into a new niche. So it's really focusing on what do they do already? What collateral, what IP have they got, intellectual property have they got already that links into their book? Because we're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We're looking at making it as simple as possible, as easy as possible. It's not exactly the most easiest process writing a book, but what do they do already that they're known for, and how do we build on that through the book? So that's really what I explore with people. And the very first thing I ask people is, what is your vision? What is your goal? Because if you know the end point is X, we can then focus on how they can reach X. So really it's just about how that idea enables them to do it. So if they want more speaking engagements, want more clients, want more corporate opportunities, what ultimately does that book open doors to? When you know that, it makes it easier to actually hone that idea or tweak that idea. And sometimes people start and the idea changes, evolves, they do some research, and that's okay. But you've got to start. There's that fine line between starting before you're ready and not starting. And you just have to just go for it sometimes and know that things might evolve and change.
Yeah. Take a lean approach. This is your working hypothesis. And yeah.
Yes.
And what's really interesting as well, just looping right back to sort of where we started, is when you've got that clarity and when your book is supporting what you're doing in your professional and personal development, more generally, you're not only is the writing easier, but the marketing of the book is easier, because then you're marketing the whole business. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. And that's what Book Marketing Made Simple is all about. It's about how do you market your book and your business at the same time. So with social media, it's not just about marketing your book, it's about marketing your business. Yeah. And actually, if you do it all right, if you do everything well as you write your book, it means that you could always get clients from your book before you actually publish it. That's what I really encourage people to do, is look at how they can, or open doors to opportunities or things along those lines. So the book can do that whilst you're writing. And you don't have to wait a year, 2 years to reap the rewards. You can actually reap the rewards now when you do it well.
So the writing of the book can fund the writing of the book.
Absolutely, yeah, and I talk about that. I talk about that a lot through my program. So that's one of the things I've tried to bring into this second edition.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Great tip, and great practical application of that tip too. Thank you. It's a bit greedier. And you probably know as well, in fact, you know because you've had to come up with two before. What book would you recommend? It gets harder, doesn't it, when you come on for the third time? What book would you recommend that people who are listening should read if they haven't already? And you are not allowed to name any of your own, as you know.
So I think everyone finds there's a book that they would love to have written themselves. And one that came to mind when I was thinking about this earlier is Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence. I love that book.
It's such a good book.
It really talks my language. It's a lot of the stuff that I say to people. But I think what Daniel does is brilliant. He's got an amazing business, he's an amazing person. But that is my favourite book of his. So, yes, definitely one I recommend.
And of course, one of his key principles, one of his P's, is publish. So
Absolutely.
yeah. And of course, he's a former podcast guest as well. I always remember at the Business Book Awards one year, he was giving the talk at the intro, and he said something that I have quoted shamelessly ever since, which was something about the world doesn't necessarily need more books, but the world needs more authors. I just thought that was such a great way of putting it, because it's about that process of writing that changes you as a person, that deepens your understanding and your knowledge and your clarity, and all the things we talked about. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Thank you so much, Karen. Now, if people want to find out more about you, more about Libertas, more about your work as the book mentor, more about your books, where should they go?
Libertas.com, librotas.com is the best place to find me. Everything that I do in terms of the writing, the planning, publishing, well, not publishing, more of the marketing launch stuff, all of that can be found there. Book Marketing Made Simple can be found at bookmarketingmadesimple.com, which is one of the things that I always recommend. Get the URL for the book, so then you can quote it, and it makes it so much easier. So yeah, you can find me. I'm on all the social media platforms.
Of course you are.
Search for Karen Williams, the book mentor, and you'll find me.
And when's the podcast coming?
This summer. The podcast is, I'm planning the interviews. I think I've got the first interview with one of your authors, actually, Ginny Carter.
Hey!
That's the first interview that I'm doing very, very soon.
Well, what a great place to start.
It'll be launching probably before this one goes out, actually.
Excellent. Well, this will be going out when Book Marketing Made Simple comes out in September. So I will have a chat with you before it goes out, and I will get the URL, the link on the show notes, along with all those others. So extraordinarybusinessbooks.com if you are driving and you haven't got a pen to hand and you don't want to cause a crash. Brilliant. So good to talk to you again, Karen. No doubt see you in a few months' time with the next one.
Not for a while, Alison.
Great now. But thank you so much for all your wisdom. It's just a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.